Okay, you got me. So I have like a special talent that I've never really showed anyone before, and I kind of want to, just open up the can today, let everybody know. I can juggle, but I can only juggle Pokemon figurines. So today I'm going to try and show you guys this talent. This is the stupidest intro idea ever. What is going on, guys? So today we are back, and today we're actually going to be looking further into the Mirror Cup, which still sounds awkward, but we're looking into the Mirror Cup at a Pokemon specifically available in the past cups. But oddly enough, today, the highest voted Pokemon in the last, few days since I've been taking votes through the Discord, which, by the way, you should definitely go into the description and join the Discord, is Sceptile. Show me Sceptile. But Sceptile has only been available in one cup this month. And funny enough, it's the Jungle Cup. So I guess you could say this is kind of like a pseudo, late addition to the Jungle Cup deep dives. But anyways, let's actually get into Sceptile here. So Sceptile is actually a pure grass type Pokemon, maxing out at 2757, but with a 0 on attack, 12 on defense, and 15 stamina. At level 20.5, you can hit a clean 1500, which is amazing. Now, of course, all of this is possible based on our base stats here with a 253 attack, 169 defense, and a 172 on stamina. Sceptile's looking pretty strong. The thing that's pretty interesting about Sceptile is whenever we get down into these moves here. So to start off with our fast moves, we actually do have Bullet Seed, which is a 3.66 energy per turn for a 1.66 damage per turn, but after stab it does get bumped up to a 1.99, 2.0 roughly. And then we have Fury Cutter here for 4 energy per turn. We get a solid 2 damage per turn. Fury Cutter, of course, is a bug type move, which does mean we do not get stabbed. But if we take a look at Bullet Seed versus Fury Cutter, just to start off with, we're getting an extra third of an energy per turn, and we're actually getting 0.01 more damage per turn. So Fury Cutter is just clearly better in both fronts. There's no reason to run Bullet Seed, honestly, at this point. Possibly in a cup where grass type is super dominant, maybe Bullet Seed would make more sense because of super effectiveness there. But in general, Fury Cutter is just going to be just flat out better in a lot of situations for us, at least here. So next, moving into our charge moves. So in the latest PvP update, Niantic did in fact give Sceptile Dragon Claw, which is a very cool addition, and I actually really like having Dragon Claw there, and we're going to figure out why here in just a second. But to start off with all these moves, I definitely think that Leaf Blade is the most enticing one here. It definitely makes the most sense. It's super low energy cost for a really good efficiency here. We do also get stab off of it, which does boost that efficiency even higher. So for 35 energy, we get 70 damage at a 2.0, and then after stab, it's an 84 on the damage for a 2.4. That's insane. That's really high. And then if we look through our other moves, Frenzy Plant also makes a lot of sense here because it is also relatively low for a really good efficiency there. But I really got to looking at these and I was like, you know what? I can understand Frenzy Plant because of just how much raw power it has, but I also understand Aerial Ace, especially in the Jungle Cup, and I also understand Earthquake, especially in the Jungle Cup. And then there's also Dragon Claw, which I really just want to look into and see what that's all about. So that's actually what I ended up doing. So for the rest of this video, we're actually going to be focusing on 2 particular moves, and then we're going to have our third move be one of the extra 4 that we have down here. We're actually going to go with Fury Cutter and Leaf Blade for the 2 moves that we are sure that we want, and then we're actually going to look at all of the Aerial Ace, Earthquake, Frenzy Plant, and Dragon Claw shield situations to kind of figure out which one of these makes the most sense for us. So straight away, let's actually take a look at Frenzy Plant, which is the one that PvPoke actually suggests that is the preferred moveset for Sceptile here. So in our 0 versus 0, we actually had a 23.5%, which is decent. Actually end up winning against Lantern, Golem, Graveler, and Raichu. Next we move into the 1 versus 0, which is a 41.2%. We actually have Lantern, Golem, Graveler, Raichu here again, but we also add Magnezone, Victory Bell, and Magneton to our wins there as well. Unfortunately, even in the 1 versus 0, where we should have a lot more dominance because we have an extra shield, the opponent still ends up just getting through to us a lot of times, and we don't even end up with more than 50% in that scenario. So that's pretty interesting. Next we move into the 0 versus 1, which is of course where I am a shield down versus my opponent. The only win that we have here with a 5.9% is Lantern. So you can kind of see that Lantern is a pretty big deal for Sceptile to really target there. Next we move into our 1 versus 1, which is a 23.5, just like we did with our 0 versus 0, but the wins are kind of switched around here. So we still have Lantern, Golem, and Graveler, but instead of Raichu, we actually end up beating Magneton this time. Raichu actually either beats us or ties up against us, which is quite interesting. So Raichu isn't a clear win between the 0 versus 0 and the 1 versus 1, like Lantern, Golem, and Graveler would be, but I mean, that's kind of interesting. Next, moving on to the Aerial Ace moveset, we actually start with our 0 versus 0 here with a 35.3. We actually have quite a few wins here, which I thought was interesting. Golem, Graveler, Lantern, Magneton, which we've already spoke on those with our previous moveset, but if we run Aerial Ace, we actually do gain wins up against Wigglytuff, the king and queen of the Jungle Cup right there. I mean, that's pretty interesting. I'm surprised to see that we actually end up beating those with just Aerial Ace. The difference between Frenzy Plant and Aerial Ace means that in the 0 versus 0, you could win against Wigglytuff and Vigoroth. Think about that. That's pretty crazy. Next, we move into our 1 versus 0, which is a 76.5% this time, so way better than we did with our Frenzy Plant there. We actually only end up having 3 losses this go around. So we have Scizor, Fortress, and Noctowl, which is quite interesting. Everything else we win. So like Lantern, Golem, Graveler, Raichu, all the things that we talked about in the Frenzy Plant, we all beat those. We only end up having those 3 losses, which out of those 3, they do make some sense. Scizor and Fortress able to hit us for super effective damage with their bug type moves, and Noctowl hitting us for super effective damage with its flying type move. I mean, that makes complete sense. Next, we move into our 0 versus 1, which is a whopping 0%, which is gonna kind of be a theme for the next few movesets, but I don't think we should focus all of our attention on that 0 because there's some interesting points that I'll make once we get through all of these movesets here. So last but not least, in the 1 versus 1, we do end up with a 35.3, just like we started with the 0 versus 0, except in the 1 versus 1, we do have some differences here. So we still beat Lantern, we still beat Golem, we still beat Graveler. We actually end up losing Wigglytuff and Vigoroth wins here, but we trade them out for Magnezone and Victory Bell. And then we also keep the Magneton as well there in the 1 versus 1. With Aerial Ace, we could potentially have favorable matchups up against Wigglytuff and Vigoroth, which is pretty important, but with the 1 versus 1, it gets a little bit more wonky, so it's kind of interesting that we kind of can beat them, but it has to be in the right shield scenario. Next, let's actually move on to our Dragon Claw, which is the one that I was most excited for. So we start with our 0 versus 0, which is a 41.2%. So we end up winning against Lantern, Golem, Graveler, Victory Bell, Vigoroth, and Wigglytuff here, which is quite a bit. So in the 0 versus 0, we actually end up having a lot of wins with Dragon Claw, which is actually the highest one that we've seen so far with a 41.2 in that specific shield scenario. Next, we move on to our 1 versus 0, which is a 64.7, so not quite as high as we've seen, but still doing pretty good. Venusaur, Scizor, Vespiquen, Noctowl, and Fortress, though, are the actual Pokemon that can still end up beating us there. Even though we have a shield up on the opponent, those can still end up getting through to us. Venusaur, it's going to be the Bulk Master. I can kind of see why that would hurt us, and plus it does have that Poison type move to really boot. And then we do have Scizor and Fortress, which we've already talked about in the past. Of course, they have, you know, the Bug type moves. Noctowl also having the Flying type moves. And then Vespiquen showing up here, quite bulky, and it also has access to some Flying type moves as well. Next we move into our 0 versus 1, which is a whopping 0%. Yeah. But we end up bringing it back just a little with our 1 versus 1 with a 35.3. So not too bad. We end up winning against Lantern, Golem, Graveler, Victory Bell, Magnezone, and Magneton. And for what it's worth, that's the exact same result that we would have with Aerial Ace. So when you're comparing those two movesets together, you kind of do better with no shields when you have Dragon Claw, but you do better when you have an extra shield up with Aerial Ace. So kind of a toss-up depending on which one you want to run there. Next, Earthquake here, which in the 0 versus 0 ends up with a 52.9%. So by far, that is the highest one that we've seen in the 0 versus 0 so far today. So the only ones that we actually end up losing to are some of the bugs, Knockdown, and Venusaur. So the bug types make quite a bit of sense considering that they can hit us with a lot of super effective damage. Knockdown and Venusaur we've also talked about hitting us for respective super effective damage depending on if it's flying or poison type. Next we move into the 1 versus 0, which is a 76.5, which we actually end up tying with Aerial Ace's shield scenarios here. And the Pokemon that we actually end up losing up against are Fortress, Masquerain, Knockdown, and Vespiquen. So very similar to the Aerial Ace moveset, but just a slight bit difference in the matchups there. Next we move into our 0 versus 1, which is a whopping 0% yet again. But we do actually bring it back with the 1 versus 1, which is a 41.2 this time, which is quite interesting. So we end up actually beating Lantern, Golem, Graveler, Raichu, Magneton, Victory Bell, and Magnezone there, which that's quite a few matchups there. And for what it's worth, that's actually the same set of matchups that we would have won with Frenzy Plant with a shield up on our opponent. So when shields are even with Earthquake, we do just as good as if the opponent had a shield with Frenzy Plant. So that's actually pretty cool that that seems to work out a lot better in Earthquake's favor there. So now, I know that's a ton of information that you have to download and put inside of your brain, but to simplify this, we can actually just look at each one of these movesets and just average together all of the actual shield scenario numbers, and we can actually end up finding that, oddly enough, Frenzy Plant actually performs worse than any of the other moves that we've looked at today. So if you're running Fury Cutter, Leaf Blade, and Frenzy Plant, your average across all shield situations inside the meta are 23.53% wins. Which sounds extremely low, but out of 4 scenarios, that's not actually that bad. But next we would actually look at Dragon Claw. Dragon Claw actually is the second worst moveset that you would be going up with actually a 35.3%. So it's not as impressive as I was hoping, but Dragon Claw's still cool. Then we actually end up looking at Aerial Ace being our second best moveset that we should actually go up with, which is a 36.78. And then oddly enough, Earthquake here actually brings it home with a 42.7% average across all these shield scenarios. I would say that Sceptile actually works best with Earthquake. You're gonna have just so many more solid matchups with Earthquake than you are with any other moveset. You're gonna win more with Earthquake than you would with any other moveset. For what it's worth though, I do actually think that Aerial Ace is probably my second favorite one because it does give us a slight bit of an edge up against some of the other grass types, a lot of the bug types. But I mean, in both of those scenarios, we do have that 0% on that 0 versus 1. So you kind of have to play around with the shields with Sceptile. You can't leave him with a shield down against the opponent. You kind of have to pay attention and make sure that you're at least even when it comes to shielding scenarios. But other than that, Sceptile actually looks really strong. Up against the meta in the actual Jungle Cup, we're not looking too bad. Unfortunately, I do think that there are just better grass types, unfortunately. Only having access to Bullet Seed and Fury Cutter definitely does hold us back in some of the areas where having either Vine Whip or Razor Leaf, like a lot of the other grass types do in the Cup, I think that's what kind of drives them home. If possibly Sceptile had something that could do a little bit more damage or possibly even have a slightly worse energy gain but a higher damage gain in the grass type move, I think that would work out better. Bullet Seed is just kind of underwhelming whenever you pair it with Fury Cutter. And if we had a better move than Bullet Seed, only hitting at best 2.0 damage per turn, if we had something a little bit better than that, I think that it would kind of shift a little bit of the matches towards Sceptile's favor, but Unfortunately, we basically just have to go with the bug type move, and it's not going to hit a whole lot except for the grass types, but honestly, in the Jungle Cup, I don't see the grass types being the ones to beat. They're not the ones that are like super duper prevalent. I mean, they have their role, don't get me wrong, but they also, like, I don't know, they're kind of in that awkward spot where a lot of people use them just as a Vigoroth counter. It's not like, I have to have Venusaur, he's the one and only that I need this cup, he's gonna be on every team. It's not quite like that. So anyways, that's actually going to be it for today, guys. Thanks so much for hanging out. Thanks so much for watching. As always, remember, if you do want to vote for deep dives, make sure you go down into the description, join the Discord, and get to voting. There is a channel dedicated to it. If you have any questions, refer to the FAQ channel to see how to vote. And then if you have any further questions after that, you can just at me and I'll try to help. So that is actually going to be it for today, guys. Thanks so much for hanging out. Thanks so much for watching. I'll go ahead and roll that sweet end credits. Thank you guys so much for watching. Always remember that if you like to like videos, you could do that, but if you don't, you could be that guy. Otherwise, let me know what you have to say down in the comments below about the video. I do highly appreciate you guys watching. If you guys want to support me in any way, there are several links down in the description for Patreon, joining the community here on YouTube, or even just directly PayPal if that's your thing. I greatly appreciate everyone's name that's on screen, as you guys have showed some sort of support outside of just viewing the videos, and I thank you guys. You don't understand from the bottom of my heart. So until our next video, guys, I will catch you then.